Are you a mystery or a thriller writer? Ooh, some of my favorite genres. In this video, we're going to explore 5 elements that you need within your mystery or thriller novel. Hi, I'm Charlotte Chipperfield. I am your book coach and editor, and I help women write, edit, and publish books that both inspire and create impact. And yes, you can inspire and create impact through mystery and thrillers. So thrillers and mysteries have been captivating audiences for centuries. Can we say Agatha Christie? She's absolutely one of the most iconic writers in this genre and one of my personal favorites. So no matter if you are writing a heart-pounding thriller or just putting together a puzzle of a mystery, these stories are really what keep readers on the edge of their seats. But what exactly makes some of these stories unforgettable? So if you're writing within the genre, let's explore the 5 areas or the 5 elements that really keeps readers engaged and turning that page. So you've probably heard this one before. I know I've mentioned this in other videos before, but the first tip is really writing a very impactful opening. We want to, as readers, be immersed directly into this mystery, this thriller, this world you've created. We want to jump straight into that action. We want to be oriented in where we are, what's happening, who are the key players, what is that feeling of tension and potential conflict. It's so important to be able to establish that tension immediately within these genres. So you can achieve this by putting us straight into a place where we have an unexpected death, or there's a mysterious disappearance, or just an unnerving event that leaves readers kind of desperate for answers. So again, your goal within the first page or first couple of pages within your book is to really drop readers straight into the action and letting them know that not everything is all right. So this really helps to set the tone for your book, and it starts to pose some questions for the readers that they absolutely need answers to. So for example, if you're opening with a body in an abandoned house or building, or potentially a main character that's receiving a cryptic message, these things really set the stage for a mystery or thriller that people do not want to put down. We got to know what happens. So the key here is not to give a lot of backstory. We don't need to know yet how we got here. We just need to know, something's at stake, something is amiss, something is not okay. So this really helps you draw readers in quickly, and then they're gonna have these questions that are like, what happened? How did we get here? And then your story can kind of unfold after that. But that first part of your book, that first page specifically, needs to drop us into that action immediately. So the second essential tip is to create high stakes and tension. Tension is such a critical part for both mystery and thriller books. It's really the heartbeat of these genres. So without it, readers might lose interest because we need to have that sense of urgency and suspicion, and we need to be a little bit uncomfortable as we're reading your book, but in a good way. We need to know that the stakes of your book, there are going to be repercussions, there are big outcomes at stake here. So each time a protagonist gets closer to the truth, maybe that increases pressure on their lives or them, or maybe puts their lives at risk. So there needs to be roadblocks, there needs to be red herrings, there need to be time constraints, there needs to be a sense of that urgency. It's also really important that your book can't just be swept under the rug, or your protagonist just can't just jump back into their life the way it was before and pretend they didn't find that body in the abandoned house. There has to be enough stakes that this protagonist cannot go back to their old life. They have to move forward. They have to solve this mystery. They have to find the person who did. They have to remain alive. Whatever it is that's at stake for them, they cannot just decide, I'm not going to deal with this. They have to be pushed to move forward. So that is done by creating these stakes and this pressure on them and that tension to keep them moving forward. So for example, in Gone Girl, the protagonist's marriage, reputation, and freedom are all at stake. So that creates this tension that is almost unbearable for the readers. So to help you raise the stake, ask yourself the question, what happens if your protagonist fails? So what happens if your main character doesn't solve the mystery, or doesn't tell someone what happened, or potentially keeps doing something bad that they shouldn't be doing? What's ultimately the pressure and at stake for them? So the bigger the consequences, the bigger the tension you're going to be creating. So by creating really high stakes and tension, you're gonna get the readers a little bit uncomfortable, but also highly intrigued to keep reading. So the third essential tip is to develop unforgettable characters. So this is true no matter what genre you're writing in, but specifically within these genres, having characters that we either love to hate or want to see succeed is really important because they are driving the story forward. Yes, there's a lot happening in your plot, twists and turns, the mystery element, the thriller aspect, but ultimately we need to be rooting for your characters. So having a million plot points is great, but if we don't care about your characters, we might not keep reading. So we want to be rooting for your main character, your protagonist. We want to relate to them on some level, even if they're highly flawed or keep going down the wrong road where we're like, don't do that, don't go that way. Even if they keep making mistakes, we want to be related to them enough in the sense of we understand their humanness so that we can root for them. So the key here with mysteries and thrillers is to have very complex characters, but ultimately we want them to be believable. So they need to be both complex and believable. So even if your main character is a villain, and maybe they did do it in the end, we still need to understand that there are layers to them, and one of those layers is their humanness. So to achieve this, you have to craft a very believable motivation. So why are they committing the crime or trying to cover it up? What do they stand to gain or potentially lose? So this is where being very clear on your character's backstory is very helpful. Not all of that backstory has to go into the book itself, but if you as the author have a really strong understanding of how did we get here? What did they experience in their life before? What do they believe about themselves because of those experiences? That is going to help drive how they react to what's happening in your plot. So it's really their flaws that does make them relatable, but we also need to be very clear on what their motivation is and what they either stand for or against. So really developing unforgettable characters, even if they end up being the villain, is okay. They just need to be layered. They need to be dynamic, complex, and be relatable. Because ultimately, your readers are going to be rooting for them, good or bad, and that humanness is what's going to connect them and keep them turning that page. So another essential component for mysteries and thrillers is to develop the twists and turns, which might sound really obvious, but what really defines a thriller is that twist, which is really important. And within mystery, the more turns that you can have that kind of have your readers thinking this person did it with the candlestick in the library might actually not be what happened. And so you get to turn and get people believing maybe that all these different people did it, but then you get to surprise and delight them at the end and be like, actually, it was this person. So these kind of shocking surprises and twists and turns and being clever is what readers expect within the genres. So it is your job as the author to keep them guessing. So you do want to introduce, misinformation and mislead both the reader and your protagonist in the wrong direction. So just when readers think they have it figured out, you want to hit them with that twist. Okay, well, maybe not literally hit them. We're not promoting violence here. But you do want to lead them in a certain direction and then be like, actually, what you thought was real and true is actually over here. So for example, with the girl on the train, readers are constantly kind of questioning, why is she doing what she's doing? Is she relatable? There's aspects of her that are very relatable, but it's like, are we really getting the full picture? Do we really understand all the different elements that are happening? So this actually leads to a lot of unexpected turns. And we start to pick up little clues and pieces of information along the way where we're trying to assess, did this person do it? Is this the full story? So by planning your twists in advance, you can actually plant these subtle clues throughout the story that make those twists really believable without being predictable. So this is where a lot of time spent in your outlining phase will be really helpful to make sure that the right information is being collected in the right places. You know where you are intentionally misleading people, but then how all of those clues and information are actually going to then connect towards the ending of your book. Which leads me to the fifth and final tip for this video is to write a very satisfying yet potentially surprising ending. So there's nothing more disappointing than investing a lot of time reading a mystery or thriller and then getting to the end and being let down by the ending or finding that it was very predictable very early on in the book. So your readers are, yes, expecting a resolution, but they also want to be a little bit surprised. So a satisfying ending includes your mystery should be solved. So there should not be any more lingering questions about who done it. We know who did it. Or in thrillers specifically, we need to know that the threat has been neutralized. So there is no more of this like heightened sense of suspense, suspicion. There is resolution. So a satisfying ending also has the loose ends tied up. So this should be most of them, if not all of them. So if you are writing a sequel, you might leave one loose end lightly unthreaded. But if this is a single book, you want to make sure that all your loose ends are tied up. So this includes making sure that all of your misinformation and the clues you left along the way have all come together at the end. We don't want anything, the misclues or misinformation that you laid out there, that don't connect back to this final resolution. And then of course, a satisfying ending has a twist that feels earned. So we don't want it to feel random or forced. We want to feel like, oh, of course, that's what makes sense. That's why that twist happened. It needs to feel very satisfying for the reader. So this means kind of letting your protagonist uncover the truth through clever deduction to really deliver that maximum impact. So that's why writing in these genres with thriller mystery is so exciting and thrilling in itself, because it's not just about having a good book idea. It's also about getting your readers invested from that first page and then taking them on the twists and the turns, but also arriving at a very satisfying ending. So this means you need to have really high stakes. You need to be creating that tension. There needs to be unexpected twists. And you want readers to be like, aha, I get it now. I see the story. And they need to walk away feeling very satisfied. So by focusing on these 5 essential elements for mysteries and thrillers, you will actually have a book that readers will not want to put down and will be so excited to recommend to other readers. So I'd love to know, what twists and turns are you creating in your novel right now? Let me know below in the comments. And of course, if you like this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel so you never miss a thing. And thank you so much for being here. I will see you in the next video.